fade, slowing down and making no time. I gotta keep it rolling. Those windshield wipers snapping out the tempo, playing perfect rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rideshare Rodeo podcast. Welcome back. Welcome back. And this week, I'm excited to be joined by the founder of Voom. It's rideshare driver insurance. It's also motorcycle insurance. And I'm not sure if we'll tap into this today, but you're doing something with drones as well. And I'm very excited to be joined here by Tyler MacLennan. And Tyler, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks so much for the warm welcome and the intro. Yeah, really excited to be here.
Okay. So as I was looking through the stuff, the one thing that kind of stood out to me just before we even go into anything is the drone coverage looked like it was a little bit on its own. Like something kind of maybe even took you to a different site. It looks like the motorcycle and the rideshare side is more Voom, but I guess they're all Voom. But yeah, it was interesting to me anyway. So we'll see if we get to that. But
yeah, I'm happy to kind of give you the breakdown there. So yeah, I'm actually our head of sales and customer success here. I wish I had the idea to found the company, but I'll give that credit to my two founders, Tomer and Ori. We actually got started under the name Skywatch doing drone insurance. So basically, our whole kind of plan or platform is to target niche segments in the mobility sector and come up with really custom solutions for kind of the underserved customers that we don't think have a great solution today. So we started with commercial drone insurance. So that's the Skywatch name. From there, expanded into light aircraft aviation insurance. So think 1 to 6 seater airplanes. People who are either rent those or own those. So people typically learning how to fly or perhaps hobbyists. And then, we outlined another segment in the mobility sector that we thought was really underserved, which is motorcycle insurance. So people who don't ride their bikes a lot. About 70% of the motorcycle riding population is only doing 2,000 or less miles a year on their bikes. And they're really paying with a normal carrier about the same as, if they rode 20,000 miles. So we said, how can we design something that's more fair? And we came up with the idea of a pay per mile motorcycle insurance program. But as you might imagine, the name Skywatch, not a great name for motorcycle insurance.
No, but it's great for, isn't it .ai too? Was I right with that?
Yeah. AI is catching on. It's aviation insurance. Everyone's got AI in their name these days. We were there a little sooner just for a different reason. But yeah, Skywatch.ai. And then at the kind of tail end of this past year, we started with rideshare insurance, so insurance for rideshare drivers.
Awesome.
So both under the Voom brand name as well.
And so I want to make that distinction right now because a lot of my listeners are very familiar. Been doing this for years. They're very familiar with the other two companies that were around doing this, and you guys do something very unique and different than the other two that were around. I'm sure you're aware of Buckle. I had Buckle on the podcast a few times, and then there was another company that was only in Illinois, but they were about to leave Illinois called Stable. I don't know if you're familiar with them as well.
Yeah, I am.
And I've had both their CEOs on, great people, and the idea and the concept was great because most rideshare drivers I know are not properly covered. Just going to say it. I mean, how and what plays out. I try not to play that part of the game anymore. Like, have you been in an accident? Because I've had people say, dude, I got screwed, or actually it worked out okay. It wasn't the worst, but I wasn't covered properly. And to move forward, I had to change this. But those are lighter things. And, I've worked with legal rideshare. I've heard all the stories. So I know that the scenario can differ. But the bottom line is, I think, first of all, I think a lot of people are worried to call their insurance agent and ask.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest things I hit with people is I'm like, are you sure you're covered properly? And they're like, yeah. But then if I dig deep, like really what it is they don't want to call.
Right.
They don't, and it's not about, if they could just call, they would. But if they feel like if they do, they've now put it out there that they're doing this. But with you guys, unlike Buckle and Stable, you're not buying that full policy. you're buying the at use time.
Yeah. So what basically, thanks for breaking that down. So what we're covering is we're covering any of the personal driving that they're doing. So everything, outside of doing rideshare. And then, they break it down into 3 different periods normally, right? So, period 1, you have that app on. That's when you're searching, perhaps for a passenger or a delivery. We're covering that time as well. And then today we work with 3 platforms. We work with Uber, UberEats, and Lyft. And then, Uber Eats, and Lyft, they're covering, periods 2 and 3 with some different limits in there. And then, you basically, on your way to get a passenger in period 2, period 3, you have a passenger inside the car. And then, once you drop them off or the delivery off, then you're back to, basically period 1 where you turn the app off. So our goal is to basically create comprehensive coverage, kind of around the clock, whether it's, through them or, by them, I mean Uber or Lyft, or it's, coverage through us.
Right. But I mean, I like the fact that when I was looking through the website that you're actually connecting because we used to do all this at Para too, but you're connecting your Uber and your Lyft account. I'm guessing that Uber and Lyft are more than okay with you guys having that ability.
Mm-hmm.
Because with a lot of third-party apps, they're not okay. And the Uber terms of service itself says, no, you can't use third-party apps, but yet you're not an app. I mean, it's different, but it is strange because people are used to doing it anyway, but we're all told not to link our accounts to things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's I talk to customers through us on the phone, and, the way to link it up, sometimes there's a code, and, it even says on the code is you say, don't share this with anybody. And right. Sometimes I'm putting it in there, on their behalf. But yeah, basically the way that our insurance is working is you go to our website, get a quote. You can also, obviously give us a call. We can do it over the phone. But as part of that process, you're linking up your ride sharing accounts with us. So we're able to see that information in there. And that's what's, allowing us to very clearly make a division between, the driving that you're doing, whether it's for Uber, Lyft, or it's your personal time. And then through that, we're able to really much more carefully rate our policies. And that's what's making them most cost effective and beneficial for drivers. So, through that ability to link it, it makes it simple for us to see the division between the two. And there really is no gray area. And I think, you alluded to this before, and that's where so many drivers are is, they say, well, I don't really know the answer. I don't want to call my insurance provider because I don't want to hear that no. Or, I talk to drivers all the time where they've been dropped from their previous company when they raise that question. So it's kind of a don't ask, don't tell, sort of a thing. And, like you've alluded to, there's a lot of misinformation out there as well.
So even I'm surprised to hear, because I thought when I was talking to your team before you came on that I'm surprised to hear Uber Eats. I didn't know you guys were doing delivery. And I did look back and see that like end of last year, it looked like you were maybe approaching or broaching the idea of delivery. But then as I saw for this year, it didn't look like you were.
Yeah, so only Uber Eats for delivery. And the reason for that is, the specific coverage that Uber's supplying their drivers during that time matches up with the coverage that we can offer, to make it so that, again, there is no gaps in coverage. And that's the most important thing, really for us as a company and for me as an insurance professional. When I talk to somebody on the phone or, someone from my team is helping a customer with a quote, I want people to have that peace of mind that, if something happens, whether I'm driving in my personal time in between a ride or I have, someone in my car or something in my car, that's going to be covered. And I think, that's why we're selective in just those 3 as of today. We are looking to add more as well, but there's, many other delivery apps that are out there that we don't work with today. And the reason is we through a lot of conversation with them directly, through a lot of research, we basically just don't trust that there's not potentially going to be a gap in coverage, which, is the nightmare scenario from the insurance standpoint is, you get into an accident and there's no one there to cover the claim. Yeah.
Or as I was talking about earlier, or you find out you weren't covered. And specifically, I guess I'm going to go ahead and ask you this because it is a little, it's a big touchy subject with me. I've been doing rideshare since 2014. Is Uber Teen. I know it's new, but since day one with Uber, it's always been no unaccompanied minors, period. No two ways about it. No unaccompanied minors. And now that has changed to Uber Teen is allowed. How do you guys feel about that? Or are you even where are you at on that one? Or are you aware of it? Are you?
Yeah, no, I'm not particularly aware of it. Are you able to elaborate on what that is?
So basically, Uber, it was, as a driver, we're told no unaccompanied minors since the beginning, since 2009, since the debut. But post-pandemic, they started realizing the demographic of 16-year-olds getting their license wasn't nearly what it used to be.
Right.
So Uber, being the non-moral compass that it can be sometimes, decided that let's take advantage of that and get these kids on board. And so what they're doing is the Uber Teen account is supposed to be a sub account of the parent account, and that parent account being the parent's account.
I see.
So it's actually supposed to be a sub account of the one account, and they can track you at all times and this, that, and the other. And I tell all drivers, don't take them. Once you see it get launched in your city, just like some people don't mind like a pet, that's different. But you can turn Uber Pet off in the settings just with a simple toggle. Same thing with Uber Teen. And I tell everybody, it's not worth $2 to put an unaccompanied minor in that car. So just the first time you see it, decline it and turn it off.
Very interesting. Yeah, I guess I wasn't.
I mean, basically, how would you feel about a 13, 14, 15-year-old taking a ride with a driver on an account on their phone that's tied to their parents without the parent in the car?
I think from like an insurance standpoint, there's really, not a big difference for us, in terms of, the way that coverage is going to be applied. We're talking about on the way to get the teen or having the teen inside the car, that's going to fall under, primarily the insurance that Uber's offering in most of those cases. But I certainly understand the driver's standpoint and the enhanced risk and just, complications that could arise. I'm sure it's just a lot of additional complexity with someone who, isn't like directly on the account, probably isn't as used to taking something like an Uber or a Lyft. And, everyone has different opinions on teenagers for sure. But I'm sure there's additional complications there too.
As a father myself, my son just graduated high school. I would have never allowed him the access to, I wouldn't have ever wanted a stranger picking him up. And there's already been claims of kids missing. Kids have been raped, assaulted. All of this is going on already. We saw this coming. This would be a nightmare. But now there's even been kids who have the teen accounts who are partying like we all did when we were teenagers, but they're getting their friends in the cars, going from party to party. Yeah. I mean, this just seems like I just don't see any win in here at all. That's why things like specific ride sharing for kids, I believe, happen. But I mean, I guess I see what you're saying, that the driver would be. My thing is, I don't think the driver would be covered at all. I even think Uber breaks its own terms there. I think that Uber immediately tries to wiggle out of having to pay anything on a teen issue. Yeah, because this is where they play that independent contractor card. And they're like, you're a contractor, you should know better than to take a teen. Well, because I hear people saying, well, they wouldn't put it on the app if it wasn't legal. I'm like, but you need to know what's legal for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like there should be a lot more guardrails in place and precautions, and perhaps special setups and things like that for the drivers that want to participate in it. And it's good that it sounds like there's an ability to toggle it on and off, because like you said, there's a bunch of complications. I mean, I think the one positive, not really directly related to this, you talked about kids going back and forth from party to party, at least they're not behind the wheel, driving a car
absolutely.
in that situation. But, for something like this, you want to be prepared. And I think, your average Uber driver that's out there driving around, and then you just get one of these pop up and it's, two kids heading from, one high school party to the next. It's a dicey proposition for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you get the parent who's like, yeah, we want him taking the Uber or her taking the Uber, but you're just like, yeah, but see, I guess I just think of all these bad scenarios that the driver could get into. So just drivers, be careful. I mean, you guys all have to make your own decisions, but just be careful. And I always play the card of just because it's on the Uber app doesn't mean it's legal even necessarily.
Yeah.
In some areas. I mean, like we've had problems with Uber Connect and other things too. So we've been going through this for years. But back to the platform itself. So the digital usage-based insurance, this is where I think that the big thing comes in for people is this, that wait, so you're going to actually be able to tell when I was on the app and really charge me properly. I know you said even your personal time insured, but obviously that means there's a big variance to being in phase 3 on a rideshare ride. Like if I was just to take a personal insurance policy and I didn't even ever do rideshare with you too, if I needed 24/7 coverage with with not full commercial grade insurance, I think this is what scared off some people in the beginning, but more of okay, I have a passenger in the car. What insurance do I really need during that time? Even Uber's not clear about it. I mean, Uber accepts insurance. I'm sure you know this. And they say you're good to go on rideshare, but yet you're not carrying the right insurance, and they just looked at it and they know it.
Yeah, I think the complication for Uber, right, and I think it's as soon as they start advising perhaps their drivers on insurance, then it becomes more of like a traditional employer relationship, which is often what they're trying to avoid, right? So the key difference for us is, as you mentioned, we're able to see very clearly when you're on a trip or when you're driving personally. Kind of all those different periods are very evident for us because we have that data. And then the way that we're rating our policies is, what we think is the most fair approach, which is, when you're on your way to get a passenger, you have one in your car, really, Uber is covering that, and you're paying Uber, as the driver to basically have that insurance. So
minus that, but yeah.
So we're basically very heavily weighting, or more heavily weighting, the driving that you do that's not that driving. So basically, we break it down to 2 different buckets. We say, what is your personal driving? What is your commercial driving? And we ask you to basically make a guess when you start your policy. And for some people, I talk to some drivers, they know like the back of their hand every mile they drive, and they can very easily, kind of figure it out. Other people, they're not quite sure, especially if you're a newer driver. Talk to a lot of people who, they're just getting started and they're not sure how much they're actually going to drive. So, a guess could be a little bit more difficult. But then, many times these drivers, they don't want to drive a ton in their personal time. If you're in the car all day, driving for Uber or Lyft, your idea of getting on a long road trip or something like that outside of that isn't the most exciting proposition. So there's a lot of cost savings that can be had there.
So, but is there any kind of idea, because for those that don't want to call their insurance, or like you said, even an insurance agent that might go, man, what? Well, you're doing that? We're going to drop you. Anything like that. Is there anything that you can get, any kind of metric you can give to people that somewhat gives how much of an increase you should expect? I know you guys do it on the workable time, but even just like to let people know to maybe either scare them or not scare them. I don't know. It depends on your answer.
Yeah. So I would say, if you don't have, a rideshare endorsement or a rideshare policy today, I think, or even if you do, typically there's a cost savings with us. What it really boils down to is how much are you driving your car, for your personal use. If you're someone who, is, doesn't have a long normal work commute, or is their only form of income is rideshare, and that's what you're using. That's what you're using your car for, and you're not driving extensively in your personal time. You're going to see probably very tremendous savings with us, regardless of if you actually have a traditional, rideshare insurance policy or just a normal auto insurance policy. Where I would say we're not the most competitive is, someone who's, putting 15, 20,000 miles of personal driving, on their car. Essentially, if you're driving more than what like the average person drives in your state, if you're around that metric or below, our policy is likely to be very cost effective. If you're driving much more of that in your personal time, then it's probably not going to be as competitive, but we'd still invite you to, come take a look. It's obviously pretty quick to get a quote online, so it can't hurt.
Okay. And so also, who's a candidate that's doing rideshare? Like, who's a good candidate?
Yeah. I think our like
I mean,
ideal
obviously, I would
customer.
tell everybody, if you're interested, go
Yeah.
apply. Why not?
Yeah, our ideal candidate is someone who's really driving for Uber Eats and Lyft, those ones really exclusively, because that's what we support. That's the first piece. The second piece is someone who is mostly using the car for doing rideshare and not driving a lot in their personal time. So if you're
Okay.
someone who doesn't use the car extensively outside of doing rideshare work, then we're going to be very cost effective for you.
Okay. And then this, so like the Voom Care, the risk analytic engine, the next generation policy management. So are there things of this that I'm trying to figure out how, maybe I could just it sounds like you have an insurance background. So like if I had like an Allstate or I know this, it gets so hard, so I'm trying to word this properly, but an Allstate or a State Farm or something like that policy, how do you compare for I know that everybody's unique, but an average driver switching over cost effective wise?
Yeah, so I would say, if you are in the position where you're someone who isn't driving the car a lot in your personal time, so let's say you're driving less than the average person, you can see 30-40% savings at times. It's really dependent, as you said, on a lot of different factors.
Sure.
It's always these conversations. Everyone wants to know, when you talk about insurance, what's it going to cost? Because that's
I know. I know it comes down to, that's why I know it comes down. And I'm going to put up a map in a second about the states you're already in. So I mean, like, I know that's a huge variable too, because I know from working with Buckle and Stable that they actually introduced me to how hard it was to work with regulatory boards in different states and things like that. It's just like, they were like, it's just a nightmare. I know what you're doing is different, so maybe that makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
Not really. But somehow you've done what they tried to do. You've expanded bigger than either of them made it.
Yeah, we've invested a lot into trying to access more markets, and that's one of the most difficult things to do as an insurance provider at all. You alluded to it, how difficult it can be with the different regulatory boards, and some states just kind of aren't moving. Some states are just a very, very long review process to be able to do it. So that's where a lot of our effort is gone. And yeah, we've been able to from the start of got started in October of 2023 with one state. We started in Tennessee, and now as of today we're in 15 states. So that's, and for those who are viewing, that's a really rapid growth in the insurance world.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I was saying, Stable was in Illinois only. They were trying to get out of Illinois. Buckle was around for a while. They were only in a handful of states as well. I know with Buckle, they had something unique too, where I don't know if it just completely fell apart or what, where Lyft was paying the drivers in Georgia, the state of Georgia only. They were paying the drivers 10 cents more a mile on Lyft X if they had Buckle insurance.
Sounds like a deal we need to get in on.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I don't know if you have anything like that going, but I know that it just disappeared now, and I almost feel like it disappeared before Buckle did. But I was like, see, that's unique. That's pretty cool. Like, I mean,
no, that is, we have a direct dialogue with Uber and Lyft. We don't have any kind of preliminary offers or anything like that. It sounds like they had, but something worth diving into. I wasn't familiar with that specific deal that they had, but that sounds intriguing. I mean, that's a great way, obviously, to incentivize drivers to get a certain amount of insurance. 10 cents a mile, that could be,
because it adds up.
It could add up. Yeah. I mean, it could
for sure
cover a gap in the insurance cost between, what they might have been paying elsewhere. So yeah.
I mean, not only that, Uber X has really dropped in most markets. So that 10 cents really does make a huge difference to X drivers. So, and it also just solidifies even though it's already solidified and it's okay, but it really solidifies the partnership, I thought too, when they did it. Like, right. Oh, this is totally okay. They're actually giving more money if you get it. So yeah. But real quickly, for the audio podcast listeners, I want to make sure that I'm doing this. So Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Minnesota, Missouri, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Indiana, and Maryland. Did I get all of them?
You got all of them. There is one more, Oklahoma, we just launched today, so that's
okay.
brand new.
Okay.
But didn't expect to see it on your graphic there. But yeah, we are as of today in Oklahoma. We're proud to say.
Okay. Yeah. So way quicker movement. I don't know how long you guys have been around either, but
yeah, we were founded in 2016. So we've
so
been
you've
around
a while.
For a while. But yeah, just with this most recent product, just since the tail end of 2023.
Okay. So was it just the lack of other people in the space that made you move over to it, or?
Yeah, I think a few things. I think, again, as I mentioned kind of at the beginning, our goal is to try and design insurance products that we feel are just more fair and more applicable. And I think what we see in the rideshare space is, from the insurance side, is often a big surcharge, to your insurance policy for having a rideshare endorsement for, really not covering much more. When you're an Uber driver, you're on your way to get a passenger, you have one in your car, Uber, you're paying them for the insurance during that time. If something happens, that claim's most of the time going to go through Uber, right? So, why is it necessarily fair that you should pay, a lot more to, let's say, Progressive or something, to give them that, kind of privilege to insure you. So, our goal again is to be a cost savings for rideshare drivers, not an additional cost. So that's basically why we broke into this specific space. We just saw it as another big opportunity to provide a service and obviously help ourselves expand as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I would also say, because I talk to drivers all the time about this, I would say to anybody listening, all of you listening, we've all discussed many times the insurance rate hikes that we've seen, and it's insane. I mean, there was a time, I've been with Allstate. I'm going to just say it. I've been with Allstate for like 25 years. There was a time when I had the good driving record discount. That doesn't even exist anymore. Like now it just goes up every year. It doesn't even matter what happens. Mm-hmm. I have a son on my policy, and and he has no tickets. He's so far perfect record, but it's just like, I mean, I'm just shocked because it doesn't seem to ever be an end. So maybe that was another, I would think it might have been a hindrance, but maybe that was another positive factor for you guys to get into the space too. Like going, man, these other insurances are going through the roof.
Yeah, I think, everyone has it top of mind right now. I mean, costs are high across the board everywhere in the United States. And, I think specifically for, people who are part of the gig economy, rideshare drivers, they're people who are doing this to earn extra money. It's not typically just for fun, though, it is for some people just looking for some way to stay busy. But, any way to save is more profit, for doing the work. And I think it can be easy sometimes to, from talking to a lot of the newer rideshare drivers. I know you mentioned you were part of a kind of the rideshare space since 2014. I was as well. I actually got my start in insurance working for a company called Metro Mile. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but we were one of the first to start providing insurance for rideshare drivers based out of San Francisco. And so often I would talk to people who were just going to start driving. They would be, leasing a car to do the driving, and they wouldn't necessarily be factoring in all the, costs that they would take on themselves to actually start driving for Uber. And it's really easy to kind of get almost underwater, if you're not carefully planning those things out and being considerate. So, again, our goal is to try and flip that over and try and make it something that's easier to approach and also just more fair, more affordable.
See, and I would say even though you were in the Bay Area, I should know that name. But here's how I feel about how these companies work sometimes is that, again, never since the beginning have they been they're very elusive when it comes to talking about insurance.
Uh-huh.
I know why too, because not only do they want to play the independent contractor card, but they need to, if it goes to court, they need to go, he's his own boss. He's his own business. I don't know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that. I actually get their side of it too. I do think that sometimes that power might be abused, but I get why that might be necessary. But Like they wouldn't want, there was a time when you could be raising your hand and waving your arms going, where is the rideshare insurance? I need to find it. And they would just be like, look, you're good. You sent in your insurance. Don't worry about it, kind of thing. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
Like it.
It's true. And I think there's, some level of, obviously Uber, Lyft, they want more people on the platform. They want more drivers. It allows them to provide just broader coverage, faster rides, better service, all that sort of a thing. And, it's somewhat to their, it's not to their advantage to kind of stack up all the costs before you get started to say, okay, now you got to pay for, a more expensive insurance policy. You got to think about all these different things. That's going to potentially deter someone from ultimately becoming a driver. So I think there's that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just too bad because I feel like here they are working with you, but yet they just can't say, even if it were like, look over there. Like if you ask Uber a question, they're just like, well, just look over there at Voom and ask them. Wink, wink. Like we're cool with them. Ask them. Like they won't even do that though. They won't. They will never like say, yet you're okay to be working with them, but they won't say it. It's just so strange to me. I get what you're saying. But again, to me, it's like, why even have drivers send in the insurance if they're, and I get that they could not have everybody checking all these. I have firsthand done a lot of work with Checker. I'm not impressed with Checker's service. I've seen them fail on many times. But like, why are you even asking for the insurance if 95% of what you're getting sent in isn't the correct insurance?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like you're getting verified. Like you're good to go. Like, no, you're not. I mean, as an insurance person, do you think that most drivers, you would look at their policy and say you're okay?
You mean in terms of, just someone that doesn't have Voom insurance that's coming to us with their own?
Doing some rideshare and has no clue.
I would say most drivers don't know. They don't understand that they need something different, or if they do, it's more of a suggestion than a requirement, and they don't understand the gaps, or if they do understand the gaps, they feel that the likelihood of something happening is so low that it's worth taking that risk that they don't really fully perceive as a risk. So yeah, I mean it's very common to see people coming to us specifically that or don't have rideshare insurance, and in some of my previous companies I've been a part of where we did sell rideshare insurance, it was often a battle because it's kind of convincing someone that they should get the coverage and pay more for it. Here at Voom, most of the time it's not going to be more, but in cases where it is, that's a big conversation that you have to have. And you don't want to be in the position, or I never like to be in the position of, from the insurance standpoint, is like trying to scare someone into doing something. I don't think it's particularly effective, but, I do hear, stories all the time of people, and you mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast here, of just people who have had their insurance claim denied, or have been dropped by their insurance provider, or have just had a really negative experience. So it is important. But I think generally speaking, to just drivers as a whole, they don't fully grasp that.
Yep. And I've talked to legal rideshare, and as far as rideshare, they are absolutely about, you do need this, but when it gets to delivery, they're kind of like, and the delivery companies don't have you anyway. So it's like, I don't know. I guess their feelings on like Instacart, they've had some issues with Instacart and stuff, and they just don't really pay up. But I guess that's not even a space that you're in. But I mean, to be honest, they've said same thing, that most drivers aren't aware they need it. Yeah. And you could, and again, I don't consider it a scare technique. I consider it, I don't want to see somebody's life ruined.
Right.
Because of that, what you were referring to is they just don't think it'll happen to them. I live in Denver, and I got to say, like, I just cross my fingers every day I get home and when not in an accident, because they're all over the place every day. Like, when you're like, the people, I'm thinking, who are those people that think that like, I won't get in an accident? I'm just like always like on defense, like, okay, like I feel like it's just going to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. You can't plan for it. It's the way to plan for it is to get the right coverage. But a lot of people do have that perspective that it's not going to happen to them. It's
Yeah.
beyond even just insurance or rideshare. I think that's in many ways like a human tendency is to just be like, oh, it's not going to happen to me, sort of a thing. But
so this is what I would tell the listeners is to make sure to go over to the website, voominsurance.com, go and get a quote. Especially, I mean, first of all, in the states that are active, the 15 in Oklahoma, or if Oklahoma is the 15th.
Mhm.
Okay. So the 15 total that we named, but also how do you guys feel about the states that you're not in yet? How do you handle those quotes submissions?
Yeah, so we don't have the ability to return a quote, but we do have a wait list that you can join. So
Okay. So I was thinking that's helpful to you though,
yeah,
because it starts to let you know who's interested in what market.
exactly right. Yeah, I mean, and I think more than anything else, once our plan is to be nationwide. That's where we want to get to. It just will take time. We hope to be in many more states this year, and continue to expand from there. So if you're in a state that we don't support today, and you add yourself to the wait list, you'll be first to know. We will, as soon as we launch any state and you're on the wait list, you'll get a notification that we're there. You can come and get a quote. You can give us a ring. We're happy to talk to you and walk you through it on over the phone if that's the preference too. But yeah, that's how it works.
My guess would be, and this is just a guess, I know you don't have the answer either, but my guess would be the day you'll know that they're in every state is the day they're in California.
Yeah, it's probably about right. Yeah, California is a tricky one. Yeah, it's a tough cookie to crack for sure.
Yeah. I mean, just when I was thinking about regulations, I was thinking about all these regulations that California would just have with this, and and how many people would want their hands in it too. So I mean, you're just talking about such a big cost. But this is, I would say to anybody who is in those states, like I was saying, go get the quote, because if you're afraid, even especially those of you who are afraid to ask your own agent, go get the quote, because that quote could like really mean something to you. Like it might, I mean, maybe I'm speaking out of line, but I've seen on the website where it says you can save up to 60%. Is it right here? Yeah. Save up to 60% potentially. I mean, now up to is clearly means up to. So, 40, 50, whatever it is. But what if you were to like go there and ask for a quote and then it actually comes back cheaper than what you're paying right now?
Exactly.
I'm just saying, guys, if that happens and that's going to cover your rideshare potentially too, yeah, there's metrics that need to be worked out, I'm sure, from the quote, but it's going to be close. So, I mean, if it's the same amount or less, why wouldn't you do it? Or at least be willing to go through the process and see exactly what it is, because this is a good chance for everybody to learn about what coverage you need too. So, and I'm guessing that you have a very supportive team that gets back to people immediately and is more of a one-on-one than a lot of places are.
Exactly right. Yeah. So we're happy to, like I said, happy to have you head to the website, get a quote, or give us a call if you prefer to talk to someone, or most people do. Get a quote on the website, and then from there, call in if you have any questions. So we're happy to support in any way that we can. But yeah, like Steve said, there's really no downside, right? You come, you get a quote. The price is better or the same. It's a win. If the price isn't quite as good, at least you're getting an okay deal now. Or if you don't have rideshare insurance today, like everyone else, you'll weigh those options, the kind of the cost benefit. Do I want to get the right coverage? Do I want to stick with what I have? And decide if that extra amount perhaps is worth it. But as I've said numerous times so far on this podcast, we are really competitive. If you are someone who primarily is using that car for doing rideshare, the rate will come back competitive. So come take a look and see how much you can potentially save.
So the last thing that I have then is just so when they get a quote online, is it okay? They're putting in some metrics, and even you said obviously that needs to be tweaked out to the exacts, but it's giving you a good idea. But do they get, or is there a way to get a copy of the actual verbiage so they can compare it against their current policy, like where some of the wording differs a little bit? Or is there somewhere to direct people so that they can see where that wording might, like, kind of make sure that if this didn't work out for you, you went to Voom Insurance and you decided not to go with them, but you want to make sure the coverage is in your other one, or you did go with them, but until your coverage ends, or whatever you decide to do, but to just kind of like overlay against your own insurance and see, are you even protected?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, a great point. So when you go to our website and you get a quote, a lot of description, a lot of tool tips exist there that does add an extra layer to explain what the coverage is. If you're someone who really likes to kind of dig deep, you can visit kind of our more info page, and there's a bunch of different articles that kind of breaks down the coverage in really finite detail, how we work with Uber Eats and Lyft, how the coverage works, some breakdowns of what would happen in X scenario or Y scenario, and then if you do proceed and purchase the policy, you get a full policy and insurance cards, sent to you immediately, so you can fully review that. And we're happy to help, address any questions or concerns at any stage of that process.
Awesome. So it really can just be done virtually over the internet.
Yeah, if you don't want to talk to me at all, that's completely okay. You can go directly to the website and complete the purchase there. There's no requirement to speak with someone. I think a lot of people prefer that approach. I
know they do, and I know that this seems like something to me that I will say honestly, if I'm making a switch like this, I'm probably going to want to talk to you. But yes, in life, I've kind of started going the other way. If I don't need to talk to somebody, I don't want to. But with this move, I think I'd want to. That's just me.
Yeah.
I mean, even if I did go through the online stuff, I think at the very end, before I pulled the trigger, I just want to, hey, is this legit or?
Yeah, my favorite calls to get are the ones where people are like, hey, I'm at the page where I'm putting in my credit card and I'm about to hit pay, but I just want to make sure that this price is real and I have the right coverage. That's a good call to get. You answer a few questions, they buy the policy, they're happy, they're saving some money, and obviously we have a new customer.
Yeah, so I guess that's my challenge to everybody listening. We've got a lot of listeners. But if you're here in the United States, especially in those 15 states, try it. I mean, there's no harm, no foul. It's not pinging your credit score. I don't think it's not doing anything that's going to hurt you. It's just a free quote.
And one other thing I'll add, because I think, this is a concern I get a lot. We're not selling any of your information. You're not going to get calls from other companies. I know there's, some of those kind of comparative raters out there. You put in your phone number and then you're getting called from 10 different insurance providers. That's not going to be the case. So okay. No need to worry about that.
Yeah. I think that all of us have just gotten so used to, it's become like tone deaf that our data is being sold by the second, it's like,
yeah.
There was a time I remember that was a big topic of conversation here on the podcast, but it's like gotten to the point where it's like, dude, everybody's selling my data. I'm just
yeah, everyone's just given up. You just don't answer the calls unless you recognize the number and you see if there's voicemail and you go from there.
But it is good to hear you guys aren't doing that because nobody wants their stuff sold off to third parties. That's just I mean, I guess there's a time and a place. We allow Uber to do it. We allow Lyft to do it. So
yeah. Like you said, it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable at a lot of times.
So you guys check it out. All the links will be in the show notes, voominsurance.com. There's no reason not to. And again, if you own a construction company and you have a fleet of drones, go there. If you have a motorcycle, go there. I mean, I think like here in Colorado, so many people have motorcycles, but they're a weekend thing. They're I go out on Sunday and take a ride through the mountains. It's not their normal transportation. And I would think those people are like the perfect candidates as well to go there.
They are. Yeah. I mean, for our motorcycle insurance truly is, if you're like most riders, really, someone who doesn't get to ride all the time, isn't fortunate enough to be able to spend most of their day on the back of their bike, our insurance can be a nice way to save. And, that can take different forms. Like you said, the weekend rider, or maybe you're someone who lives in a climate where it snows, or, in like Arizona right now, it's too hot to get on the back of your bike. It's makes sense to do something that's more pay per mile usage based, so you're not having to kind of pay the same amount every month, even if you're never getting a chance to ride.
Yeah, that's right. So Tyler, thank you for your time, and everybody make sure to check out Voom, and we'll check back in with you here in the near future. But thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Steve.
She was just a baby.